Hello. Uh, so yeah, this is the final vlog. Uh, Vlog number 5. So yeah, this last section of the book, uh, it's quite the section. There is pretty much just one major thing that I had to say about it. Just like one part of it that I had to talk about, and it's a section on queer cinema. And upon seeing this section, I was pretty excited because it's a topic that I have a lot of interest in. But I was really disappointed because it seems like this section was written by someone who is very unfamiliar with the topic. Uh, like it starts off just talking about like completely irrelevantly, like, oh, uh, here's why um, here's why homosexuals uh, are real and not fake. Like as if we needed to know that. Like yes, they are. You bring that up just seems to call that into question. You know? Yeah. There's other there's other nitpicky stuff. How they uh, often just how they always just use his or her instead of their, which is just a big pet peeve of mine in general. Like, I just find it really annoying when people say that, when there is just so much simpler, and it's just there's really no reason not to say there. But it's especially bad when the subject matter has to do with queer people, because then it seems like you're just excluding non-binary people who are a very important part of the community. And yeah, that's not very good. That's not a very good thing. Uh, it doesn't make you. It makes you seem like you really don't know what you're talking about. Um, but yeah, there's bigger issues though that have been that are presented with this section of the book. Uh, like it's very jarring how little is mentioned about the lack of queer creators in film. Like he meant, or they mention that there's quite a few queer actors, and that Hollywood is very relatively progressive in that sense. Really, it's not as progressive as you might think, as they might make it out to be, because there are very, very little in the way of queer directors and writers, people who actually make the movies. And honestly, there's even kind of a lot, uh, kind of very little queer actors. Well, okay, there's a lot of queer actors, but not a lot of them are getting used, you know? Um, it's also not mentioned that a lot of these, like even these supposedly good, positive queer movies aren't made by queer people. Like they're made by cishet men, and when it's made by someone who's an outsider to the community, then there's something missing, and they can't really understand. Uh, they can't really understand those stories, so how could they possibly tell them for us? You know. Uh, Plus, even a lot of these positive or supposedly positive movies, have a lot of kind of problematic undertones with them. Like a few tropes that are very commonly used. There's a lot of them. I'll just name a couple of the big ones. Like one of the more kind of messed up tropes is the kill your gays trope, which basically is the phenomenon where a gay character that's introduced into a movie, or like a gay couple, will die some sort of tragic death, which sure can be like appropriate for the story or something. If like you want your story to be something very sad, then yeah, that's pretty appropriate. But I don't know. It just kind of instills this feeling of futility, especially in queer audiences. Uh, it makes them feel like a happy ending isn't really possible for them, which is just a horrible thing to take away from a movie, you know? Like, there really should be. There's so many love stories and stuff that end happily for heterosexual couples. Why not gay couples? Why do they, more often than not, get the tragic ending instead of the happy one? Another common thing that happens is how there'll be a gay character in a movie, and they're just kind of rendered invisible, you know, or at least almost invisible. It's especially prevalent in big movies, like uh, big blockbuster movies that are meant for an international audience. Uh, because they have a lot of incentive to make it so that these characters are easily edited out of the movie, so that because a lot of these countries that they're selling the movie to, China in particular, are very anti-LGBT, and they'll not allow a movie with those kinds of themes and characters to be aired. Often, these characters will just be relegated to one scene, like one tiny little part of one scene, or even if they're like a major character, they're only able to express their queerness in one scene, or not even one scene, just like a couple seconds out of the movie, which is just kind of pathetic, honestly. Like at that point, I'd just rather that they didn't do anything at all. And yet still, they get a ton of praise. Like you see all these news outlets going like, "Oh, it's so historic. Disney's first openly gay character, and it's just some random character who has no name and only appears in one scene and just mentions briefly 1 second, oh, by the way, I have a girlfriend." And that's just dubbed over in like other countries. And it's just really annoying. Like, really? You're gonna expect me to give you praise and admiration and be thankful for giving us the bare minimum? You know? Like, come on. Like, but yeah, that may not seem like a big deal, but like, look at the author's figure that they give for the amount of queer people that supposedly live in America. 10%. Honestly, it's very likely that the number is much higher than that, because a lot of people are closeted, or a lot of people are like so far in the closet that they don't even realize that they're in the closet, you know? So that number might be even higher, like maybe like a fifth or a fourth even of America is queer in some way. So that's a lot of people, and they're not getting the representation that they deserve. And it's something that is important, like to know that hey, you're not you're not a monster, you know? You're not some kind of freak. But yeah, that is the main thing I had to say about this last section. It's much more that I had to. I had much more to say about this than anything else. Like the last chapter of the book was something really cool. Like basically, it was just this deep dive into one movie. Uh, with all the different topics that were covered previously and going in depth about this one movie, about how it portrays them. Citizen Kane, uh, commonly regarded as being like one of those perfect movies, like a masterpiece. A great movie to do that with. Uh, yeah, I really like that. Like, it's something that is very, very helpful, especially as someone who's a very visual learner, uh, who often has to learn by example rather than just being told something, especially verbally. Like, I can barely process verbal information. It's really difficult for me. So that kind of stuff really helps out a lot. But yeah, uh, I think that's basically it. I don't really have much more to talk about. Yeah, that was my last vlog. Uh, See ya. I'll maybe do something like this again sometime. Maybe. Who knows? Bye.